As you saw in the previous video, stand-in is a ticket to faction warfare, and it's a good idea to understand how different actions in faction warfare impact various stand-ins. So first I want to distinguish between NPC faction warfare corporation stand-ins and faction stand-ins. So every faction in faction warfare has an NPC faction warfare corporation. For example, for Gallente, it is Federal Defense Union. For Minmatar, it's Tribal Liberation Force, and so on. And if your character is in NPC corporation, and if it joins faction warfare as direct enlistment, when your character will end up in the NPC faction warfare corporation. And next is the derived stand-ins. So in EVE, most factions are related in one way or the other. For example, Gallente and Minmatar like each other. Gallente and Caldari do not like each other. Caldari and Amarr like each other. And Amarr and Gallente do not like each other. And so on. And when you get a faction stand-in increase or decrease for one faction, you may also get a corresponding change to faction stand-ins for some other faction. And this is called the derived stand-ins impact. For example, let's say you get a faction stand-in increase for Gallente, and in this case you will also get smaller faction stand-in increase for Minmatar, but some small faction stand-in penalty for your stand-ins with Caldari and Amarr. So this is how it works. And finally, the security status. Security status enables your character to visit certain high security systems. So if your character has security status above -2, so -1, 0, and so on, you can visit any high security system. And if your security status goes down, when you start to get chased by local NPCs in systems with high security status. Once your security status drops below -5, your character becomes a criminal. So you will be chased by NPCs everywhere in HiSec, and others will be able to attack you anywhere, including HiSec and LowSec, without Concord or without security guns, gate guns, or any other impact at all. And now let's look at the actions, the typical actions in faction warfare, and how they impact all of these parameters, what I just explained. So firstly, joining or leaving faction warfare has no impact on stand-ins, so you can do it all the time, no problem at all. Next is capturing complexes. Capturing complexes increases your stand-ins with NPC faction warfare corporation, and it eventually leads to promotion. So what's a promotion? Promotion is based on your stand-ins and victory points gained. So every militia has a bunch of titles, and the more work you do in faction warfare by capturing complexes and so on, the higher you get on this career ladder. And promotion will give you increase to corporation standing for NPC corp, and the increase to faction standings. This sounds good, but the problem is that this promotion is also affected by derived standings. So if you fight for Gallente, for example, and you get a promotion for Gallente, you will get a boost to your standings with Gallente, but you will also get a penalty for all faction standings that dislike Gallente. For example, Kaldari, Amar, and so on. Which eventually can be a problem, because if you want to change the side and leave Gallente and join with Kaldari, your standings with Kaldari may actually be quite low just from these promotions, and you will need to do something to repair them. So keep that in mind. Next set of actions is aggression. So when you aggress enemy faction warfare pilot in player corporation, there is no impact on anything. But when you aggress enemy faction warfare pilot in NPC faction warfare corporation, when you will get a penalty against these corporation standings. Not a huge deal, unless you want to run missions for this NPC corporation at some point. But if you do, this can become a problem very quickly. Your NPC corporation standings actually tank really fast. And I think if you spend just a couple of months in faction warfare, you will have like close to -10 against the opposing NPC faction warfare corporation standing. Next type of aggression is aggression against neutral pilots. It only affects your security status. This used to be a big problem in faction warfare, because you would have to fight neutrals all the time, and your security status actually tanked quite fast. But at some point, CCP added suspect flag for all neutral pilots that try to enter complexes. So typically, as a pilot enlisted in faction warfare, you will usually fight against suspects. And when you fight against suspects, there is no impact on security status. However, if you are the neutral pilot and you just look for some PvP in faction warfare, when this will become a problem for you, because typically you will engage pilots that are neutral to you, that are not suspect, and in this case you will have a security status penalty. For example, my main character, that is not in faction warfare, has security status of like -9.5 or something like this, just from PvP in faction warfare. Okay, so next type of aggression is the aggression against friendly militia pilots. This is called avoxing and generally discouraged, but I think you will encounter it if you spend a bit of time in faction warfare, especially if you enlist with one of the pirate factions or insurgencies. So when you aggress your militia pilots, you get penalties to both NPC faction warfare corporation standings and to faction standings. This penalty is not huge, so it doesn't really stop avoxing completely. People can shoot friendly militia pilots occasionally, and then, like after a month or two, just try to repair their faction standings by running epic arcs, or just grinding normal missions to get storyline missions. One pretty strange game mechanic related to aggression or against friendly militia pilots is the area of effect weapons. They will count as aggression, which is really weird, but it has been in the game, I think, from the beginning of Faction Warfare, and I don't think it can be fixed. So this is just part of the game mechanics now. So if you use smart bombs or ECM burst in Faction Warfare fleets, for example, you try to smart bomb the drones from your Logi, the game will think that you are trying to AVOX a bunch of friendly militia pilots, and you will get a pretty sizable penalty against faction standings. And if a friendly pilot has a suspect or criminal flag, everyone can engage without penalties to faction or NPC corporation standings. So just be careful if you picked up a suspect flag somewhere when your friendly militia can just kill you without any penalty to any standings, which is another pretty weird mechanic. Does not seem logical, but it's in the game. Next is killing faction NPCs. This is mostly related to missions. In the current faction warfare environment, people don't really run missions, but if it changes in the future, when you should know that you will get penalties for faction standings, this is for the opposing faction standings, for the NPC faction warfare corporation standings, and you get a derived standings hit as well. So faction warfare missions actually tank faction standings pretty fast. And if you complete faction warfare missions, then you get a bonus for your corporation standings in faction warfare. So this is just some really difficult to unpack spaghetti code. I hope you find it useful, and let's keep going to cashing out loyalty points and good manners in faction warfare.